all my Arsenal takes always come back to bite me. Whenever Arsenal start getting a bit low and I can make a dig here and there and take the mick and make a joke, of course I will as a rival fan. But every time I make a joke about Arsenal, it always ages badly. I always seem to jinx it. And this is me enjoying the international break. I'm going over to Barcelona. I'm seeing the Champions League trophy at Barcelona and I'm saying, you know what, let's have a bit of banter. Let's wind some Arsenal fans up online. I'm like, I've touched more Champions League than Arsenal ever will. Ever will. I could have just said Arsenal, but I said ever will. And I've already had 2 people send this to me today after the Madrid win. You haven't won the Champions League yet. You've just beat Madrid, okay? And they're like, Alice, we are going to make your life hell if Arsenal win the Champions League this season. We are going to remind you of this tweet because this isn't the only thing I've said about Arsenal. You know, I'm like, Arteta clearly doesn't care about trophies. He just likes to finish second. He could still win a trophy. He hasn't won it yet. For my sanity, PSG, Inter, whoever plays Arsenal, please pull through. This team cannot win the Champions League. And this team that's had a dead attack now has Saka back. That is a top 5 attacker in the world, top 5 winger in the world. No one will give him credit for that, but he is a top 5 winger in the world. They can do stuff, Arsenal. They're good against the big teams. If you're a bit vulnerable defensively and give them a bit of space, they will cause issues. The toughest teams Arsenal have to play are the Newcastles, the Atletico Madrids. Inter Milan will give them a tough game because they're so defensively good and they can get you on the counter. But I'm scared, I am worried, I am nervous because Arsenal winning the Champions League makes me feel sick. Now, I thought, you know what? Real Madrid are gettable. Arsenal could win this game. I thought it was going to be close, but I was like, you know what? Arsenal could nick a win, and then they've just got to hold on at the Bernabeu. Arsenal didn't need to nick a win. Arsenal destroyed them. Courtois is the only player for Real Madrid that can hold his head high because he stopped it being 6-0. I've not seen actually Barcelona done that to Madrid. Other than Barcelona, I've not seen Madrid turned over like that for a while. Now, we know that Chelsea outplayed Madrid in the Champions League a few years ago. So did City. So did Ajax. You know, Madrid, they're not unstoppable in the Champions League. We know that. This season, they're definitely gettable. But they had that juju versus Atletico Madrid with the Julian Alvarez penalty incident. And I remember doing a video last year. And I reacted to my old TikTok videos where I would take the mick out of Arsenal. I'd make jokes about Arsenal. And I was like, Odegaard, Ben White, you know, taking the mick out of their transfer signings. And, you know, that aged really badly because last year Odegaard and Ben White had a really good season. And I own up to it. Like, I like to take digs at Arsenal. I like to banter Arsenal. But I own up to it because I like to think a lot of the time, as much as I like to take digs, I feel like I'm quite rational a lot of the time. Like, when I sat down and spoke about Arsenal, I was more like, if they've not won the Premier League or Champions League, they can't have this ego yet. Do you know what I mean? That's my thought process. You know that till you win the Premier League or Champions League, I'm like, pipe down, Arsenal fans. When you start trying to banter me, if they win their Champions League, you can banter Man United all you want. You can banter everybody all you want. You can still banter us, but we can just give it back to you saying, well, you haven't won the Premier League since what, 20 years nearly. You haven't won the Champions League. If they win the Champions League, that's the one thing they've not won. That's the one thing they can be like, you can't give that to Arsenal anymore. And like, can Arsenal win the Champions League? This is what I'm worried about because we'll talk about them potentially having PSG next, maybe Villa. I do hope Villa win. But in the group stage, they destroyed PSG. People don't understand that Arsenal physically are one of the best teams. Declan Rice can cover ridiculous amounts of ground. Monster physically. And, I mean, the screamers he scored. Physically, Arsenal can destroy like a lot of teams, and PSG have this technical quality, and they were amazing. And I think they beat Liverpool because Liverpool were actually worn out. But actually, in the second leg at Anfield, Liverpool probably did enough to win that game, but couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, which is something Arsenal may feel when they play PSG. But we've seen Arsenal destroy PSG already this season, 2-0, but it was like Arsenal were all over them. They were dominant. So they could have PSG next, which we know they can beat. If you can beat Real Madrid 3-0, you know, even though this isn't the best Real Madrid side ever, even though the Real Madrid midfield was atrocious, you can beat Real Madrid 3-0 and keep killing Mbappe quiet, can keep Vinicius quiet, and keep Rodrigo quiet. And all I'm going to say is if Saka had the performance of Vinicius or Rodrigo, despite Saka being out injured for the last 3 months, everybody in their timeline would have been going at Saka. Everybody in the timeline would have been doing digs at Saka. Saka stinker, Saka stinker. Vinicius had a stinker. Rodrigo had a stinker. Mbappe had a stinker. Saka was the best attacker on that pitch today. He'd just come back from injury. He might have not got a goal and assist, but it was the 1v1s, the putting the crosses in. He was beating his man and creating a chance. Beating his man and creating a chance, whether it's 1v1s, whether it's 2v 2v1s, whether it's 3v1s. He was doing that. He was, who knows if he's fully fit, but he was making this crazy impact. And I remember, like 3-4 years ago, I was like, Saka's good, but I don't know if he's got that ceiling to go to the top. I said, Saka's good, but, and he's raw, but I don't know if he has that ceiling. He was like an Anthony Elanga. I got that so wrong. Saka, for me, I thought Greenwood was going to have a better career than Saka. Greenwood, yes, a lot of that is his own fault. And he's technically still a good player. But, like, Saka continues to just prove everybody wrong. And I accepted about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to be honest. I was like, I was wrong about Saka. This guy is going to go to the top. Like 3 years ago, I said, you know what? Saka's going to go to the top. I'm talking like 5 years ago. I'm talking like 2020, when he came through. He's better than Foden. I've said for the last 2 years, he's better than Foden. Even if Foden won Player of the Year last year, he's just better than Foden because he can do it when his team needs him. When his team are crap, he will show up. When his team is poor, he will show up. He will do it for England. To show up, no matter the circumstance, no matter the position, no matter the role, it is such a unique attribute. It's such a unique attribute. And I don't think Bukayo Saka gets the credit for it. He's got good output as a winger. I think he was on track to break Henry's assist record before the injury. Can score goals, but like Saka has a lot of defensive work. He does a lot of pressing, he does a lot of defensive work, he does a lot of tracking back and winning his duels. If he had the license to stay further forward, or if Arteta played him even closer to goal, his numbers would be ridiculous. And I think if Arteta did that and he got those ridiculous numbers, I think he'd start getting the respect he deserves. Because outside of his numbers, which are still good, his all-round game is fantastic. His ball carrying ability, his dribbling ability, his ability to take players on 1v1. And 5 years ago, I was like, oh, Saka's good. I think he'll be a good player, but what is his ceiling? Do you know what I mean? The same way I looked at Anthony Elanga, I was like, he's a good player, but what's his ceiling? Will he, he'll be a good player for Arsenal, but would he be an Arsenal legend? That was my thought with Saka. He's an Arsenal legend. He's a fantastic player. So every time I make a joke about Arsenal or I say something, they're always like, yeah, shut up, Alice. Shut up, Alice. I've made a joke that they'll never win the Champions League. It will be my luck that they will win the Champions League this year, won't it? It will be my luck. I think Inter are the only team I sit there and think could beat Arsenal. I know Barcelona are great, but they're still a little bit leaky at the back. PSG have been great, but physically, I think Arsenal beat them. Inter's the side that's going to give Arsenal the toughest game. I'll tell you that now. Inter is the side. Because the thought of Arsenal winning the Champions League makes me feel sick. It will rattle me. It rattles me, Arsenal winning. It rattles me. I have this thing, and it's not all Arsenal fans, but there's some Arsenal fans online, and they're so annoying. That I love to banter Arsenal. I love to use the Champions League, even though Man United is shite, and I'm not in a position to banter Arsenal. But, it's just the football. It's the online world. You take it, you give it. If you give it, you got to take it. If Arsenal win the Champions League, I'm going to just have to shut my mouth. I can't be like, take dicks at them. I can't give them stick. I can't be like, Ten Hag's won more trophies than Arteta. I have to just straight up shut my mouth if Arsenal win the Champions League. And I don't want to be able to do that, But I'm just blown away with how good Arsenal were versus Madrid. I think Saka coming back makes a huge difference. But, it was just how good and dominant Arsenal were. They didn't have Havertz. I don't think they need Havertz for these final games. I do think they need a striker that would help in those moments because it could have scored 6 versus Real Madrid. But if they can do that to Real Madrid, they can win the Champions League. And if Arsenal win the Champions League, I feel sick. I don't think Real Madrid are going to get back into it in the second leg. I mean, this guy was ridiculous. I mean, I'm going to say this again. I've already done a match reaction over on Akita Football, my second channel. I did a detailed analysis on the game over on my second channel, and I spoke about Declan Rice. But the curve on that free kick, ridiculous. That is one of the best free kicks I've ever seen taken. That is something that in 20 years' time, even if Arsenal get knocked out in the next round of the Champions League, people will look at it and go, remember that night with Declan Rice? That is one of the best nights Arsenal are ever going to have at the Emirates. And the mad thing was, an 18-year-old kid almost got man of the match until Declan Rice produced 2 world-class free kicks. Because just what I said after the game, even as a rival, I'm stunned by how good Lewis Skelly is. He was so good versus Real Madrid. 18 years old, didn't look the tiniest bit out of place. Best player on the pitch. Outside of Rice's free kicks, he was the best player on the pitch today versus Real Madrid. Biggest test, making runs, line-breaking passes, finding space, running through them. The physicality, the lack of physicality in Real Madrid's midfield was worrying. And I think that's why PSG, should they beat Villa, will struggle against Arsenal in the semi, because Arsenal showed the physicality. PSG can have all the technicality. Manchester City have a lot of technicality, but Manchester City's physicality massively dropped off this season, which is why they're struggling in the Premier League. You know, they still had the technicality, but the physical levels dropped. And the physical levels is just as important as the technical levels. Arsenal had the physical levels over a PSG, and we saw that in the early games. And I think now you've got Saka back, top 5 winger in the world, you know, top player. You know, Gabriel's a huge miss, but Kivior's shown he can step up when needed. You know, Ben White and Calafiore should be fit to come at the time. I think you've done enough. I think you hold on to Bernabeu. I've not seen Arsenal concede 4 goals in a game. You are defensively strong. I think if Arsenal had to come back and score 2 goals, I'd say not a chance. But if Arsenal have to hold on to 2 goals, which is 3 now, I think Arsenal will do that. It wasn't like the game was close and you won 3-0, but you were lucky to win 3-0. It was like you could have won 6-0. And it's like there was too much of a difference for me to look at that and think Real Madrid get in it. I think Real Madrid can beat you at the Bernabeu 2-1. I think they can. But to beat you to the extent that they would go through to the next round, I don't see it happening. You never know. Barcelona, Liverpool. But I thought Liverpool were a lot better when they lost 3-0 to Barcelona than Real Madrid were against you. You know, it was a messy moment with the free kick, Declan Rice. But yeah, ridiculous game of football. And yeah, I kind of regret my Arsenal tweet because I feel like if Arsenal win it, I've jinxed it. I feel like I've jinxed it. I've like made the joke this year that Arsenal are never going to win the Champions League, which, to be fair, I always thought they'd probably win the Champions League one day. It was just to wind people up. And it's like, now I'm like, do I delete? Well, I can't delete now. You got to own it. You got to own your stinkers. Do you know what I mean? I had a couple stinkers. You got to own your stinkers. You know, I get, you know, when I get things wrong, you got to own it. But like I'm a Man United fan. I'm not even a Spurs fan or a Chelsea fan. But just Arsenal winning the Champions League, I just don't like you guys. I just don't. It just, do you know what I mean?